All right, everybody, welcome back to another session. Today I'm going to share a 5-layer disc bead, and I'm going to start out with the cane that I'm going to use because it really is all about the cane. And I was kind of inspired by the heartbeat on a chart and was hoping that I could get some kind of high, sharp marks on the cane. I don't know if I really got to that point, but this is a good start, and I think it's getting close to the pattern that I really am looking for. Okay, so I'm going to start out. I was thinking I would want something that's buttery yellow, but I have really bright yellows and kind of greenish yellows. So I figured I'd start out with some layers, and I'm going to use the opal yellow to start out with. And I'm just going to add a little bit around my punty there. And this is a 4mm punty. I just checked. So I'm going to add a collar to it and just roll it out. That's really a huge collar on this. There's no reason for that much glass to be on there. You could really just like get a nice ball of glass hot and stick it to the end of your punty. This was like, I don't know. I went overboard. All right, so let's add a little bit more. Now I want this center to be a thin line. So I don't want to add a whole bunch of glass to start out with. Just a small amount. And I'm just going to roll it out here. Try to get it a little bit longer. And I think that is like just a half an inch off of the punty of glass, just a little bit. But I'll be able to take and use some of the glass that's on the punty later on. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on here. I'm just going to flatten this out. I thought at the last second maybe it would work better as not a round, but a flat. And I'll just give it a little bit of heat now. And and the reason why I all of a sudden also flattened it was because I was afraid that I would lose my punty mark. So I flattened it right at the end of, I could feel the punty where I flattened. So at least I know where the punty is or where it ends. That's important. All right, now I'm going to use the color transparent straw for the whole rest of this piece, and it's a very, very light yellow, and depending on how thick the layer is, it will be a little darker. And I'm just going to spend my time encasing this whole little thing here, the center part. And after encasing the first time, I'm just going to go ahead and roll out that bottom edge and then continue encasing. Some transparent colors, depending on how you work them, can be very stiff, I've noticed. But here I have a pretty good flame going, and it's a 5mm rod. So it's a little easier for me to encase it faster because it is a thinner rod. I'm used to using like a 7 or 8mm rod to encase with, but that's when I'm encasing something that I want a thick encasement on. And I have a selection of clear to work with. Here I only have one size and it works fine. All right, so I'm going to encase again. I have no idea how many times I encase this, just to let you know ahead of time. I'm not going to try to tell you and then be wrong again. So as I'm encasing, I'm just getting a little bit hot at the tip, and I am moving more so I am moving my glass rod, but I'm also moving the package of glass too. Sometimes that's really what you want to do. Then we'll go ahead and just roll this out again. I'm not worried about going all the way to the very bottom of the puntee because there's so much puntee there. And because this is really the only color that I'm using, and I want it to be a long, thick cane, and the cane is probably ending up being about 4 to 5 millimeters thick. And that's another reason why I like to use a thicker puntee rod. If you use a thin puntee rod, more than likely you'll have a thinner cane. If you use a thicker puntee rod, your cane will end up being a little thicker. So I'm going to roll that out. Smooth it down a little bit, and it looks like I'm going to add some more. All right, so there are a million different ways to make a Zanfirico cane. And a Zanfirico cane is when you have, at least to my understanding, is when you have a pattern on the inside as well as on the outside, making for a complex cane. If you just have one color on the inside and it's maybe white with clear on the outside, that would be a filigrana cane, a single color cane. And then if you just have a twist on the outside, I guess that would be just a twisted cane. I don't know. But anyway, I know that when you have the patterns inside and outside, that equals Zanfirico. And the pattern that I'm going to do here is going to be 3 stripes of white, and that's it. So I want to get into my football shape after I've gathered all of that up. And a football shape is really great. It's the perfect shape to pull your glass out with, to start marbles with, to start a whole bunch of stuff with. It's just a good shape to know how to get to. And that marble mold is an excellent tool to quickly get into that shape. All right, I rolled it out to make adding the cane easier for me. And I could have used a thinner stringer, but I wanted to make sure that the white was really visible at the end. So I'm just using a 2 millimeter white stringer, working my way from the bottom all the way up to the top point. And here's where you could really, everything can change here depending on where and how thick or thin you add your stringers. You could add one, like I almost added one to the other side, and at the last second I was like, no, these got to be close together. But it's going to look completely different depending on where you add your outside cane and how many you add and how thick they are. It can give you just, this is a great starting point for a million different types of cane. All right, I'm going to add 3 of these, slowly work my way down all the way to the bottom again, so everything is touching at the tip. And then I'll just take a second to heat up the bottom area of the cane and just pull it down a little closer to the puntee. And that white was not even, it wasn't so hot that it was clear. So remember that even a lot of times I think people overheat and then sometimes they underheat. And that's how everything started for me. I had to learn the heat. So I'm just going to take the very tip off of that now and bring it all into a nice clean point at the end so I have something to puntee up on. But it's really important to learn how to work as hot as you can while still maintaining control, and how to work as cool as you can while not breaking the piece. And then the combination of those, you just learn so much when you push yourself. And, I had to go through a lot of breaking pieces and a lot of pieces that just melted into a ball of nothing in order to understand the heat and the glass and, how it all works together. All right, I'm just going to finish here by rolling this out a little bit more because I want to add another layer of color on top. Of course. I forgot all about this layer. So in order for me to get a nice encasement here, and I'm not going to go all the way around. That's my little key here to shift everything off center, is just to add the glass on one side, completely covering the white stripes. So I'm going to heat and get that ball nice and hot and just gently draw that glass over, making sure that I overlap my last layer. And when I do this, it's not like the glass is in the flame. My glass rod is in the flame, but not necessarily this whole amount of glass. So always watch where your heat is. I'm going to add just a little bit to the other side. I wanted to make sure that that white was completely encased. Plus, the more you add on just one side, the more offset the center design will be. Okay, just because, I don't know why, I thought I'd just pull this end off again. I probably didn't have to, but you get into a pattern of doing the same thing every time. So I went ahead and pulled that out, and that'll give me a perfect spot to add my punty. And on both sides, I'm going to use this 4mm punty for a thicker cane. I'm just going to touch it to the end. I do push in a little bit and then come out and angle it. I get a better angle right here on my torch head. If I want to, I can use a marving pad as well because I'm holding it with two hands. So with this raised up marving pad, it's easy for me to kind of continue to shape it out if I need to. And here I'm ready to pull out this punty, and I'm going to heat it and push the heat deeper into the glass right there by rolling it on the marving pad. And then immediately coming up and heating up the glass more so than the punty. It's kind of like both. And then I can come out, and the punty is still super hot, so it will want to pull itself out of the glass a little bit easier. You don't have to overheat it and get it screaming hot and yank it out. Take your time pulling out the punty if you have a lot of it in the glass. And here, because I felt like it was a little dirty on the end, I just pulled a little extra off to get to the cleaner part of the glass. Ooh, that looks pretty good. All right, let's go ahead and turn this around. Every time I make cane, it's a new cane that I've never made before, so I'm always excited to see how it's going to turn out. I mean, except for your basic twisted cane. That's like a staple. But for these 5-layer disc beads, I just love having, a nice thick cane and just make a small series, just a small series of them using this one cane. I'll get maybe 5 little disc beads out of this cane, if everything goes well. So as I'm heating it up, I'm going to slowly start to twist. This doesn't have to be a high twist. I kind of want it a medium twist, not so much of as a lazy twist. And when everything feels really soft all the way through, I'm just going to come out and very slowly start to turn and twist. And then when things cool down a little bit, I can twist and pull faster and faster. There might be a point where the glass gets real soft and it might touch itself and give you a strange, the pattern might get too close to itself in some areas of this twist. And that's where I end up breaking it off and using the other edges. Anyway, that's our cane. And let's go ahead and use it in this bead. So I'm going to start out with a bright yellow. Just going to heat up my mandrel a little bit, get this color going. There are times where yellows can really be difficult to work with, and they will just boil and boil no matter what you do. So I try to clean the glass, and I try to also make sure that some rods work better than others. So I test it before I use it in the flame, and also try to get like where I need to be in the flame. Sometimes I'll just heat up a ball of it and figure out where I need to be before I actually go to use it. Okay, I'm having recording issues here. All right, so after I have this little bit of glass on my mandrel, I'm just going to round it out into a nice footprint bead. And then let it cool down, and I will add a really, like my favorite gold ruby rod, and this is all I have left of it. But this is like one of my darkest gold ruby rods. And I don't know if they used to make like an extra dark or anything, but I've had this rod around for a while, and every now and then I'll use it. So I thought now would be the perfect time to try it out on top of the yellow. And I'll just really gently use my mini mashers there to straighten it up if I need to. And that's my second layer. Another option would have been to use the transparent color I'm using here, the straw, on top of the yellow for another look. I don't know why, I just felt like I needed to have some kind of raspberry look in here. All right, now let's add the third color, which is our cane. And I'm just going to very slowly add it to the edge of the disc and very gently heat underneath the flame and out in the flame. I'm only looking to heat up the cane itself as it moves around the disc. And then here I am just going to pull straight up where I overlapped, straight up first, and then I'm going to heat it up again and just kind of pull it up and out, down. And that almost masked the area. Now, of course, if you want a perfectly a perfect edge-to-edge design, then you would use a glass nipper real quick and cut off the cane and then very gently place it into the piece again. That's too much for me to handle. That just stresses me out thinking about it. So this is the method that I go with. All right, our last two discs, our two layers, are just clear. And this is going to give it a really, really nice magnification. And it will also, because it's two layers of clear, it will ensure that the clear heats up and pulls around the side of the bead, depending on how you heat it up, but it will pull itself around the side of the bead and give you a really nice edge. And I'm literally just wiggle walking my way around so I can get the most even wrap that I can get. I am not very good when these get big. I'm not really good at just getting a big gather and adding it and, just hoping that it just wraps around perfectly. That's not really how things work. They don't work out that way for me. If I'm really lucky, maybe. But, with anything, it's just a lot of practice and a good sense of humor. All right, so I'm going to spend a second just to make sure that the clear is as straight as I can get on top of the disc. And then I will go ahead and start heating up my clear, and I'm heating up the disc too. The clear is blocking a lot of the heat that's heating up my disc. So I don't mind having the disc kind of floating in the back of that heat because I know it's getting hot, but it's not going to overheat. And make sure the disc is nice and stiff when you add this last layer. And I always feel like I am on a ticking time bomb here because you have to get the glass wrapped around everything, and the bigger the disc is, the wider around you have to go. And I'm just trying my best to wiggle my glass. I'm using a 4mm rod here, so it's easier for me to get around everything as quickly as possible without destroying everything underneath. Either way, I want to be able to, once I get to my connecting point, I slow down and gently pull away, and then immediately I go heat up my sides. Because right now, what's cooling the most is that yellow that you first laid down. And if anything's going to crack, it's going to come from that area. So I immediately heat up my sides, but you don't want to heat them up too much or the whole disc will start getting wobbly. So once you've heated that up a little bit, the whole rest of this piece, 90% of it, is just heating right here at the front of the disc. I'm going to get my flame a little hotter and wider. And it's going to depend on your flame and your torch. Your flame might not be able to get as bushy as mine. It just depends. Either way, no matter how wide that flame is, all you're looking to do is hit the very top point of the clear. And I'm trying not to overheat my my punty or my the bead release, because I see that getting hot. And if I see the bead release getting too hot, I come out and surf the glass either under the flame or above the flame and have it just surf right in that clear area. And then sometimes it helps to get back into that center point where you see the mandrel getting hot, but don't stay there very long. The rest is really just being patient and knowing in about this whole process of, it usually takes between 3 and 5 minutes, depending on how wide the disc is. Now here, when things start to look more stable and thicker, then I can go ahead and start heating up my sides, which will draw the clear further out to the sides and make it look a little nicer on those edges. And then I'll just go right back into the center again and finish rounding it out. Of course, because our, the stringer that I used is white on the cane, it's going to take a second for us to see what the pattern looks like. So the cool down here is about 20 seconds. It's a smaller bead. If it was a larger bead, it might be 30 seconds. What I'm looking for is, and I'm turning this whole time, but what I'm looking for is a little bit of the cane to start to show up again. And then I'm going to heat up just the surface for a few seconds of the glass, because the surface is what's going to cool down first. And then I'll wait for the pattern to develop a little bit more. Now, it's not helping that the base color has ruby in it, because it makes it look hot no matter what. But here at the end, I'm just going to give it a few more seconds out of the heat and put it away. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time in the dungeon.